this afternoon. This is part of Services Week. My name is Sarah Dackham and I'm a Digital and Change Business Partner at Dorset Council. First of all, before we get into storytelling, which is something that I'm very passionate about, as you'll find out in a moment, let me tell you a little bit more about Services Week. Services Week is a cross-organisational public sector event series that's being held in multiple locations across the UK this week. It's self-supported, self-organising, and it's a week of events to discuss good, accessible, equitable and sustainable public services and storytelling. Services Week promotes ways to design government and public services in a better way. We're looking for good public services that work well with users for different access needs, that are fair, inclusive, equitable and are sustainable, socially, environmentally and economically. We support this in Dorset as it aligns with our principles to become a modern, sustainable and customer-focused council. And in the digital team, we can offer support to help you develop services that are just that. So I hope you've got a cup of tea ready. This afternoon, I want to talk to you about storytelling and our experience of storytelling. So settle down, make sure you're comfy, and I'll begin the story. People have been telling stories for centuries. We tell stories to inspire, to teach, to encourage, or to entertain. Tell me the facts and I'll learn. Tell me the truth and I'll believe. But tell me a story and it will live in my heart forever. Stories have power, the power to inspire, to delight, to provoke, and even the power to drive change and to change people. Think of a good story, maybe Harry Potter or Star Wars. Both of them are powerful stories. Both have the power to change people. And that's why storytelling is such a fantastic tool to have in your change management toolkit. Something profound happens when we hear a story. It activates parts of our brain in a completely different way. When you listen to a set of facts, you just use a very small part of our brain. But when we listen to a story, our whole brain lights up. It fires up connections like nothing else. Research also suggests that stories can actually change our brain chemistry, which in turn can change our behaviours. And this is what makes them so valuable in transformation and change work when we want to change people's behaviours. So I told you Harry Potter was coming. What makes a good story? Cast your mind back to your school days. The good parts, that is. I'm sure you'll remember being taught that all stories have a beginning, a middle and an end. But one of the simplest forms of storytelling that you might not have heard of at school is the narrative arc. Now that's about something big happening in your story. So if you think back to a powerful story, I'm going to use Harry Potter because I'm rereading this again to my fourth child through lockdown, so I know the story reasonably well now. So most stories have this narrative arc and they're about change. So the stories start in a world before something happens. So in the case of Harry Potter, it's Harry Potter growing up with the Dursleys in a completely normal world. And then there's an exciting incident. This is what compels our hero to some kind of action and leads to a change. In this case, it's Harry Potter finding out that he's a wizard. The forces of change then begin their work and things start to change. This is Harry, our hero, going to Hogwarts. Then there's a crisis. And as we know, there's always a crisis of some kind. This could be the strange happenings going on at the school or Voldemort gaining strength. There's so many things you can pick on from these stories. And then the hero pushes back. That's Harry. And then there's a climax. There's always a battle between Harry and Voldemort. And as you know, probably, Harry usually wins. And then we return back to the world, or to a new world that's been changed by that story. So in this case, it's a world where Harry is now stronger. So I'm sure you can see from just that little description that there's a parallel there between good storytelling and using storytelling for change. The narrative arc fits really well with the transformation and change stories. They're usually just about a journey, but something big happening. Think of another story. Another thing really to note is all compelling stories have a problem. There's a problem in there somewhere. If there's no problem, there's no story. So think of movies you've seen, possibly Star Wars, whether it was Luke Skywalker trying to defeat the Empire in Star Wars. It's the problem that hooks us into the story. Will Luke be able to destroy the Death Star? Will good win over evil? Not sure you might have seen Frozen. I really don't know who's in the audience. It's very strange. You might have children that have seen Frozen. There's a huge change story in Frozen 2. I'm not going into that one today, but I will do at some point. In Frozen, will Anna find Elsa and will they reconcile with each other? And usually some of the problems that you see in stories and films fit into bigger philosophical problems. So in Star Wars, it's the battle of good versus evil. In Frozen, it's whether Elsa can accept herself and how she's different, which is a challenge that many people can relate to. So why are we going to use stories in transformation and change? Well, transformation change also starts with a problem, and a compelling story will address that problem. When we listen to a story, our whole brain lights up, as we know now, and it's far more memorable than just listening to a set of facts. We know that stories can change our brain chemistry, which in turn can change our behaviours. So the question really is, why wouldn't we use a story? In change and transformation, we can use stories to inspire, to motivate, or to encourage people to work together to achieve more than they thought possible. We can use stories to help build relationships, to build connections and understanding. Change isn't easy, as we know, and we can use stories to help alleviate any uncertainty or anxiety and to inform why that change is necessary, as well as what to do and what to expect during a period of change and beyond. Change and transformation, as we know, isn't easy, and strong storytelling can make things easier. So stories engage our listeners in their call to action. No amount of logical reasoning will help people overcome their fears. People have to find their own way, and that's the beauty of stories. Stories connect with people and let people decide for themselves, and that's one of the secrets of a real true influence. And remember, of course, once you've got your story, tell it loudly and tell it often, and then tell it again. In change and transformation, it's not possible to over-communicate. So, what's our story? Let me take you back to, not too far back to the beginning. I've got a child close to me. Hang on 2 seconds. Let me take you back to the beginning. There's a small child behind me that's going to crash my screen at any moment, so I apologise if he does. Back in April 2019, Dorset Council was formed from 6 district and county councils. We had 6 legacy planning authorities, 6 different building controls, 6 sets of land charges, and 6 differing GIS systems. Each authority worked differently, and officers were wasting time jumping between systems to find information and to process their applications. We had a backlog of applications, staff vacancies, and a high spend on agency staff. Officers estimated that at least 2/5 of their time was wasted on tasks caused by complaints, failure demand, and poor IT systems. Staff and customers were frustrated, stressed, and dissatisfied. We wanted to create a one-team planning system that delivers excellent customer service, underpins the growth and economic regeneration of Dorset. So we held a 3-month discovery period to fully understand the issues, to identify the problems and to form a plan. We worked with nearly 250 staff and consulted agents, town and parish councillors, the public and the councillors. We worked collaboratively in the open. We held regular show and tells, and it was one of the best starts to a transformation project that we've ever had. But then we faced another challenge. With so much valuable information, what was the best way to report this back? We had our end of discovery reports. This one was actually a video, but how are we going to get buy-in and understanding from across the whole of the service and all our stakeholders? So what did we do? We had lunch. We took a break. Remember the times you could do that? So we had lunch actually in the office. We had a working lunch. There was myself, Mary, our service designer, and Debs, our corporate director. I can't see if you're in the audience, guys, but I hope you're there somewhere. And over the best Marks and Spencer sandwiches that we could buy, not quite like the picture, we brainstormed and we came up with a solution. And that solution was storytelling. We crafted our story. A few days later, we presented it to our steering group and our project team. It was pre-COVID, so we were all huddled in our project room in South Hawks House. The walls and the windows were absolutely covered in post-its, papers showing the themes, plans, problem statements. It was standing room only. And I have to admit, being slightly nervous. It's not often that you just stand in front of a room talking to people. There was no weighty report for people to pretend to have read or even read. I simply stood there and said, I'm going to tell you a story. We didn't even write it down. I just had a few bullet points on my pad. Our story was very simple. You've already heard the beginning, and we knew the ending that we wanted, and what we wanted our planning services to look like. The second part of the story is that we're going to get our own house in order first. We're going to converge on one IT system to consolidate processes and templates and to make them stick. It's important to us to do this first because this will help us feel like one service and operate like one service rather than the 6 original services we had. And it'll also give us a really firm foundation to build our transformation. We're going to recruit more staff and we're going to clear the backlogs. And once we've done that, we'll work on how we present our planning service to the outside world. We'll refine our service around our customers, review our web presence, and then we'll also look at the new tech, considering chatbots and automation. And of course, we're keeping an eye on the MHCLG projects and the planning portal work that's happening nationally. So in a nutshell, our story became convergence first and then transformation. And it worked. We got buy-in, we got approval, and we continued to our convergence phase. So fast forward a year on, because that was nearly a year ago now, we've referred to that story time and time again. That old saying that you can never over-communicate is so true for change and transformation projects. In fact, we have said it so many times that we don't actually say the whole story anymore within the project team and the steering group. It is now convergence and then transformation, or it gets changed to inside, we're sorting ourselves out, and then outside. And when we have a wobble, and we all know we have wobbles along the way, or we might receive grumbles from our town and parish councils about our website and why it's taking us so long to change it, we stand fast and tell our story. And I'm not going to say that's been easy. We will change our website and we will work with lots of people to do that, including the town and parish councils when we do it. But first of all, we need to be firm and get our own house in order first. We'll explain what we've done so far. We'll explain that we've converged the North Dorset data and the West Dorset data, and that we're about to converge the Weymouth and Portland data soon. So we're about halfway through. And that's 285 staff already converged, over 1.8 million documents and nearly 200,000 planning applications transferred so far. And we've still got a way to go. The feedback we had from the town and parish councillors that day was that they understood our story and they really appreciated us being open and honest with them. And we will be working with them closely to shape how we present our new planning service to the outside world. We're also lucky. Councillor Walsh is our portfolio holder. He attends all our steering groups and he's a champion for planning, and he's very well versed in our story. When other councillors raise queries, Councillor Walsh can be heard telling our story. So that, in a nutshell, is why we tell stories in Dorset and how we're using it in planning. So it's over to you now. Are you using storytelling? If you are, can you let us know? And if you've got any questions, we're here to take questions as much as I can. But what I'd really like to do now is stop presenting and sharing my screen so I can see you. I hope that's okay.
We've got lots of love in the audience. Lois Smith has said you were very brave, Sarah.
Thank you, that's lovely. I can't actually see you now. It's all gone blank, Delia.
Lois has just put her camera on. Say hi, Lois.
Hi, Lois.
Oh, you're on mute at the moment, Lois.
Sorry, yeah.
We all do it.
See you all now.
Yes, found that very interesting. Thank you.
Oh, thank you.
I like the way it's presented in the story. Yes, I agree. I think we've still got a long way to go, but if you think in the year that, from what you've said, there's an awful lot being done, perhaps behind the scenes that none of us even realise is going on.
There is, yes.
Yeah.
And I think since we've gone through the pandemic, we're not communicating as much as we did in the discovery stage. So yes, that's about to change once Weymouth goes live. But yeah, it does take a while for stuff to happen. And also, I think to keep putting that story out, you have to keep putting that story out constantly, which I think we did earlier in the project, and I don't think we've done it quite so much recently. Being brutally honest there.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's great feedback. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Anybody else using storytelling? Doesn't sound like it. I think that could be it then. That's probably going to be the shortest half hour ever. You've probably just gained yourselves another 10 minutes to go and have another cup of tea before your next meeting. If there's nothing else, I'm just going to say thank you ever so much. I think we've got a feedback form to put in the chat, haven't we?
Hi, I've got a question before we go.
Yeah, sure.
Hi, my name's Rachel. I work for the Environment Agency.
Hi, Rachel.
So quite soon I'm going to be speaking to a senior leadership team, mostly directors and a few deputy directors.
Yeah.
And I want to kind of put forward to them why we need to be updating ourselves when we come to look at digital services. We need to make sure that the business puts into digital services what it needs, what they need to be able to actually deliver the outcomes which we want those services to deliver, outcomes which are really important to the whole organisation. So I wondered if you had any advice on storytelling to that senior group.
Yeah.
How to get the story to be relevant to them, I suppose.
I think it's take a deep breath before you're going, because they're probably the group that are really used to old-fashioned reports and big weighty reports. What I would probably do in that situation is start with your journey. So explain how you are now to them, and the journey you want to take them on to what it's going to be like when they get to when you've done all those changes.
Yeah.
So, and if you can hook them into the end goal and make them visualize that and see how that works for them, then that might help you to get them to connect with it. So when you get to saying, once I've done all these changes, this is what my world's going to look like, can you visualize them? Ask them to remember something, or to trigger something in their brain that gets all those connections going, that makes it memorable. If you've got any user stories or personas that you can put into that might help. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's great. Thank you. I'm just trying to think about what images I can put forward. But no, that's really good. And we've been doing quite a bit of work recently on trying to get the vision really clear. So articulating that for them in a meaningful way, I think, was going to be really useful.
Yeah. The other thing that actually worked for us that I was a bit nervous about, it was a very physical session. We stood in a room and we talked around walls. So as I moved around the room, they didn't even sit down. They were literally stood. They were standing room only. That might be something to consider, that you convey it in a completely different way as well. It certainly stayed in people's minds.
I do my best. It'll all be on Teams and Zoom and such, but
it's tricky, isn't it?
To mix it up a bit.
Yeah.
Thank
More than
you.
happy to chat before you do it as well. I'm sure you've got my contact details here somewhere. If not, I can find them for you.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Any other questions? This is Tom, my 10-year-old son, who just walked past behind me and said, yeah, I've got a question, Mum. When's lunch? It's only a few days before they go back to school. If there isn't anything else, I think, Delia, have you got a feedback form we need to share?
Yeah, we'll put that in the chat.
Lovely, thank you. Thank you ever so much for coming. I hope you enjoyed the rest of Services Week. There are still some more good sessions. If you've not booked onto them yet, please have a look and please do so. I'm on Twitter. If you want to connect and chat further, please do. Thank you very much for coming.
Thank you so much.
Bye.
Bye.
You.
Bye.
Bye.